हरिः ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम् ॐ हरिः ॐ कार्पण्यदोषो उपहतः स्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वां धर्मसम्मूढचेताः यः श्रेयस्यान्निश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधि मां त्वां प्रपन्नम् ॐ Okay, we will get started with today's class. We are in the 16th shloka of the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. This is one of the very important shlokas where the nature of truth has been discussed. We first explored what it is from our traditional teaching point of view. And then we went to the Bhashyam, wherein we looked at how Acharya has expressed those teachings. We were in a series of question and answers called as Purva Paksham, which is those who have a differing opinion challenging the assertion and Acharya responding to it. So continuing, here Purva Paksha asks, Ekadi karanatvam gatadi vishaye, gatadi vishaye, I think that is wrongly written, abhave na yaktam iti chet, right? It should be again yuktam. It is again the Sanskrit mistake that I have done. In English, it is correctly written as yuktam iti chet. Gatadi is also written correctly in English, right? Anyway, but this is a typographical error. So the Purva Paksha is pressing it further, and he says, you had earlier said about both Sadbuddhi and Asadbuddhi, which sees the same object. When the object is non-existing, both minds looking at the same, is it not a reasonable supposition? As in, if one is experiencing dualistic experiences by seeing that which is non-existent object, is it not possible? Because if an object is not existing, both Sadbuddhi and Asadbuddhi will not be seeing it. Okay, so we looked into this nuance earlier also. Basically, the question is, when an object is destroyed or it becomes non-existent, does not both the Sadbuddhi and the Asadbuddhi transgress? Do they not change? Right? The thing that is said is the Sadbuddhi is that which sees the existence, and Asadbuddhi is the one which sees the object which is transient in nature. When the object is gone, does it not that both the Sadbuddhi and the Asadbuddhi are not seeing it? So here Acharya gives a very good clarification. Na idam uktam iti marichyadi anyatra abhave api samanadhikaranya darshanat tasmat dehadehe dvandvasya cha sakaranasya asatho na vidyate bhava iti. So Acharya gives a very beautiful response. He says that would be incorrect. In a mirage, you see the body of water, though the water does not exist. You still get the experience of seeing the water. Similarly, the non-existence can give a sense of existence and give you the experience of duality. But the cause, which is the base, which is giving you the experience, has no reality to it, is the way that Acharya puts it. So you can understand, these are all, deep spiritual or philosophical or even scientific analysis is the way that I would put it. So here the concept is exactly the same, that the Sad, which is giving the existence, continues to exist. The Asat, as in the object, which is of transient nature, can borrow this existence to show up as existing. And when the object is gone, the existence still exists, whereas the object that you have experienced is the only thing which goes away. Right? So that is the nuance of this question and answer. Going further, he concludes, तथा सतः च आत्मना अभावः अविद्यमानता न विद्यते सर्वत्र अव्यभिचाराद् इति अवोचाम्। एवं आत्म अनात्मनोः सद् सतोः उभयोः अपि दृष्ट उपलब्धः, अंतो निर्णयः सत् सद् एव असत् असत् एव इति तु अनयोः यतोक्तयो तत्त्वदर्शिभिः तद् इति सर्वनाम सर्वं च ब्रह्मम् तस्य नाम तद् इति तद्भावः तत्त्वं ब्रह्मणो यथाभ्यं तद् यथाभ्यं तद् दृष्टं शीलं येषां ते तत्त्वदर्शिनः तैः तत्त्वदर्शिभिः। त्वम् अपि त्वं दर्शिणां दृष्टिम् आश्रित्य शोकं मोहं च हित्वा शीतोष्णादीनि नियत अनियत रूपाणि द्वन्द्वानि विकारः अयम् असन् एव मरीचि जलवत् मिथ्या अवभासते इति मनसि निश्चित्य तितिक्षस्व इति अभिप्रायः. He is slowly getting into the connection with earlier statement of titiksha, which was prescribed by Bhagavan. You must persevere. So here the explanation is, after having discussed the Asat aspect, Sat is the concept called the soul, Atma Tattvam, right? So that is what he is leaning towards. He is coming back to conclude to say that after having spoken about the Anatma in the previous two shlokas, in this shloka, he is switching back to the Atma Tattva, which is the concept of Sat. It does not have a non-existence, the avidyamanata, right? That doesn't exist, that it can become non-existent is not possible, because they are everywhere and remain the same, right? The Hindi word that is very close to it is atal, right? Unchanged or stable. This has been said earlier as well. This is the way in which the seers of the truth, the Tattvadarshibhihi, have determined about Sat, which is Atma, and Asat, which is Anatma. As in, it has been verifiably concluded that Sad can only be Sad and Asad can only be Asad. Further, Acharya says the term Tad is a pronoun referring to Brahma, that which or one who is everything. right? So there is a very famous Upanishadic mantra, right? Tattvamasi, very commonly quoted also. Herein again, the Tat refers to that one supreme concept of existence. Yeah, right. And even in Purnamadah Purnamidam, right? That aspect of that is referring to the Parabrahma. So he is just referring it back, saying that it is the Parabrahma which is being referred to here. The reality, the Sad form of Brahman is Tattvam. One who has this vision of seeing Tattva is Tattvadarshi. The concept said above has been determined by the seers of the truth, means those who have conceptualized the term, or not the term, not an object, the wholesome called as Parabrahman, those are the ones who can see this concept without any issue, right? Without any doubt or without any problem. Right. And as we get into that aspect, we will also become the Tattvadarshibhihi, one who can see the truth. So Acharya concludes his Bhashyam on this shloka, stating, you too take the refuge in the buddhi of contextually getting into the vision or the knowledge of such concept called as Parabrahman, the Tattvadarshis that they see. Similarly, you can also start realizing the base. How you realize the base? As it goes in one of the Upanishads, that neti neti. Right? When I look at an object and realize a existence, removing the object and seeing that existence as having existed before, during, and after the object's emergence is the way that you will have to exercise yourself. Right? That is the reason why we give the example of light as well. That light is there, you don't see it. But when an object is passing through, like when the cloud is hit by the aeroplane, you can see the beam of light. And as soon as the cloud is gone, that beam is also gone. This aspect of being able to see that which is unseen, but which brings the seeability of everything, is the exercise that one should consciously practice and come to the realization that this light existed and exists and will exist at all times everywhere. And what comes and goes is always transient in nature. Realize that the dualistic experience could come in a set order or a randomly, right? It can be both, right? The dualistic experience, what happens is it can come in a set order as well. I set up, okay, today evening we are going to have this kind of a party and we are going to have fun, and it is really literally turning out to be fun, right? Or it could be a niyati, it can be randomly happening too, right? So that aspect of experience we should be able to very easily drop when we realize that the truth has always been the light which is unseen, which is the existence, and what comes and goes is only a transient aspect. These experiences that we have will also come to our realization. Even logically, it will come to our realization, but you will become part of it, wherein those experiences of duality is always subject to change. And there is no regulation which determines how the change happens. And to blame it on an object that in itself does not have a permanent existence is not wisdom. You will get into that area. So the effect of this shloka and the explanations of this that we will see all through our journey of Bhagavad Gita or even Upanishads will be that we will not get the turbulence in us because of the difficult experiences or a very pleasurable experiences that we go through. And therefore, you should learn to persevere the dualistic experiences. And that is how Acharya is connecting the importance of realizing a Sat and attributing the Asat Buddhi to the Anatma, to the objects, and helping you overcome this being impacted by dualistic experiences, being impacted by shokam, moham, etc., and overcoming them to become a balanced being. And it's a great lesson in terms of both analysis that we did, which in itself is an exercise, how we analyze. Now, this we did for Sat Asat, right? But now, the way that this analysis is done, we can apply it on everything that we do. But don't get addicted where an analysis becomes a weakness for you. So, learn and allow that learning to slowly work into you and continue this path of learning it further, which will reinforce and make it even more stronger. An eventual result is the samsara that one experiences will slowly come down. Moving on. Here, Acharya introduces the next shloka. He says, Kim punaha tad yat sad eva sarvada eva asti iti uchyate. Having told about the experience that keep changing and bring about a realization about the nature of truth, we will now look at the absolute truth which remains unchanged at all times. So that is the subject of the 17th shloka. Moving on to the 17th shloka. Avinashi tu tadvidhi yena sarvamidam tatam vinashamavyyasyasya na kaschit kartumarhati. Avinashi tu. Tu is and avinashi, imperishable. Vinash is a very common word. Avinash is also a name that we use, which is the negation of vinash, avinash, that which cannot be destroyed, imperishable. Tad vidhi, tad, as we have said, that represents to the existence swarup of Parabrahman, or the existence swarup of the truth. Now the Sat Asat will apply and we can come into it. That Sad aspect is what this Tad represents. So remember that which never ceases to exist is imperishable. Vidhi, no. Yena sarvamidam tadam. Yena, by whom, sarvam idam is all these, tatam, contextually means pervades. Vinasham, avyaya asya, right? Vinasham avyaya syasya becomes vinasham, avyaya asya. Vinasham is destruction. Avyaya is of the imperishable. Asya, of it. Na kaschit kartum arhati. Right? So there is no one who is capable of causing a vinash to that which exists. You can only do the vinash of the transient things which are already in the process of getting perished. Right? So only that you can destroy, not that which is existing at all times. A very meaningful, very beautiful shloka. So a small recap I have written here. In the 12th shloka, we saw Atma is Nityaha at all times. In the 13th shloka, we saw that Atma is Nirvikaraha, that which doesn't change. So Nityam and Nirvikaram. In the 14th and 15th, we did not take a look at Atma, whereas in the 16th, we had seen Atma as the Satswarupam. Here, we are going to look at Atma as Avinashi. And obviously, Anatma as Vinash, that which is subject to destruction. Tu vidhi, and know that Tad Avinashi, that Atma, is beyond any kind of destruction. And that is what is pervading everything. Yena sarvamidam, by which or by whom, by the concept, all that is experienced by you, tatham is vyaptam, means extends, spreads, pervades. Right? This is taken from the root word called as tan. Right? Then we get the word such as, tantu is thread, tanoti, to spread. Right? That is the place, that is how this tatam is formed using the tan, which is the root for various words such as, the thread or other things, that which puts the things together and which is spread, formed, etc. So from that concept comes tatham, right? It's basically very generally used in Vedanta to establish the pervasiveness. So here Bhagavan has declared that we can derive the value that Atma is sarvagataha. This is a term that we have seen in Vishnu Sahasranama as well, right? Therein we will see the definition, because it is impossible to define, but we have to try and define it for the teaching purposes. So here what Bhagavan is trying to do is to say that it goes everywhere, and then he will say that it doesn't go anywhere. That contradiction is very essential for you to understand the term pervasiveness. And that is why it is used deliberately in this manner. We have seen this in Vishnu Sahasranama, and we have seen various such opposite names being given to the God to understand or to emphasize the wholesomeness. Now, this can also lead us to further values, that Atma is Ekaha. You remember we have spoken about it, that in the 18th chapter, we will see that only those who have sattvic knowledge or gyan, sattvic gyan will be that in which we see this wholesome as one. Whereas Rajasic is one that will see the divided aspects, that each object is one expression of the Atma. You will still divide it. Whereas in the Sattvic Bhavam, you will see the whole sum. As in, the division is only in the Anatma, and that division does not divide the Satswarupam. We can go back to the previous one also, where we saw that the existence is there. When an object came into it, the object borrowed the existence, and I was able to experience the object. After the object is destroyed, there is nothing to express, and hence the existence still is there, but it is undivided and wholesome. An object merely divides it so that you can experience the existence of an object in a transient manner. Right? That is the concept which should be borne in mind when we are talking about why we say Atma is Ekah. The logical derivation is, if something has to exist at all times, it should exist at all spaces as well. Otherwise, in one place it existed and later in that place it did not exist. That will become the problem. If I say that God exists everywhere, very natural and common thing that people say, right? Everywhere. Then it exists everywhere, and I ask the question, are you a God? Then you say, I'm not a God, which means in this I that you have determined, the God does not exist. If the God does not exist in this I, it also means that God doesn't exist everywhere. That would be the logical stance that we take to establish why we say that this is all pervasive, or this is the base upon which anything that you experience as existence gains its transient existence. Again, very technical. As I told you, this whole second chapter, the first portion of this is going to be this tough, right? But when we get into the subsequent chapters, you will realize the value of this and how it expresses itself for much more easier understanding. Avyayasya asya. Avyaya asya. Avyaya is like an adjective. Asya, of this, the reference here is to the Atma, means Atma is avyaya. Vyayam means to spend, to decay, where the value gets diminished. Avyayam is that which does not decay. Now, Acharya explains the value can be diminished due to two possibilities. One, that which has parts will decay. Right? Avyayam versus Niravayam. Right? That now Niravayavam is where it has got no parts. Right? So what he says is this decay can happen only when it does not have avayam, which is parts with, associated with it. So the second one is that which has association will decay. Right? Atmiya bhavam. So there are two reasons why a decay can happen. One, because it is made of parts. When things are made of parts, it is subject to a decay. because of a dependency between various parts separated by their nature. Even if in case you take at an atomic level, there is a space in between, right? It may be at a nano scale or maybe at a pico scale, right? But we know that there is, and that creates a turbulence which brings down the value, or it starts depreciating. So for something to be having a depreciation in value, there is a possibility that it is made of parts. Take this computer, made of so many parts, right? May take this table, made of so many parts. Everything you take is made of parts. And because they are made of parts, Acharya establishes there is a very separate, long discussion on why, because something has a part, it is subject to depreciation. But for here, let us just try to go at a higher level. We will take it up for some of the Upanishadic classes. But if it has an avayam, if it has a part, if it has a limb, do I have avayam? Yes. My hand, my stomach, my, what do you say, eyes, and so on. We are made of so many parts. So it is very natural for us to decay, or for this body to decay. The second thing that he says is where there is a Atmiya Bhavam. That Atmiya Bhavam means it belongs to me, it doesn't belong to me, right? This represents an association. When it may not say this is seen as a whole, as a one object, so it doesn't have parts, let us assume. Right? Now, when it doesn't have a part, it still decays. That could be the next question. Right? For that, one we can say, no, everything is made of parts. You can go into atoms and then molecules and stuff like that. Let us not even go. Something that is a wholesome, right? But if this wholesome creates an association with something else, then it will decay. That is why every form of association that you have will be subject to change. I'm not saying it will go down always. The decay should be, it's an unfortunate linguistic limitation which is making me use the term decay, but this will undergo a change. Right? So if there is, say, for example, between a husband and a wife, right, it may be the most in-depth love today morning, and tomorrow morning it may be absolute anger, and the next day it will change again, right? That change is what I'm trying to use the term as the decay, right? Avyayam or vyayam. That vyayam is expend that can happen because of two reasons. One, if it has parts, and two, if it has associations. That is the way Acharya puts it. And yet again, these are topics which we can discuss to length. And there are lots of Q&As that we can raise to find out as to why. But for now, we are going to limit ourselves to understand that in accordance with Acharya's Bhashyam, which is what we follow in our tradition too, we attribute Vyayam for that which has a part or that which has an association. Vinasham kartum, to destroy or bring a harm, because it does not have a relation and because it does not have a part, you cannot bring about a destruction or a harm to Atma. Kaschit na arhati. Right? For anyone at any time by anything is not possible. So, in this shloka, Atma is established as Avinashi. Second thing is, Atma is established as Sarvagataha. And from Sarvagataha, we also deduced Atma is Ekam. Then Atma is Niravayavam. There is no avayam to it. Atma is Asangam. It doesn't associate itself with anything. It forms the basis, but it does not create an association with it. It is like the light. It doesn't care. You take this water bottle or you take this mouse, right? It is still going to show what is passed across. For that, it should have no sangam, no association with it. And that is the concept that we established for this shloka on the qualities of that which you call yourself as I. I am Naresh. No. I am Prabha. No. Right? I am Ravi. No. It is I is that base. That I is going to allow, if it is Prabha's body, it Prabha will be the one. If it is Ravi, if it is Jyoti, if it is Sham, whatever, whoever comes in, it is just going to do the same. That is the realization that we get out of this shloka. Yet again, this is a concept that Bhagavan has spoken, and we have put our best understanding to it. In Bhashyam, Shankaracharya says, Avinashi na vinashtum shilam asya iti. Tu shabdaha asato visheshanarthaha. Right? Tad vidhi vijanahi kim sarvam idam jagat tatam vyaptam sadhakyena brahmana sakasham. He is giving akasham as an example. Right? Akashena iva gatadayah. Vinasham adharshanam abhavam avyayasya na vyethi upachaya pachayav. Right? Here, the word that he uses is upacha and aupacham. Right? So this is the two things that are put together. Right? So this is basically the upper wala, that is what it is, and aup, which is down. So the rise and fall is the meaning here. Na yati iti avyayam tasya avyayasya. Na yetat sadhakyam brahma svena rupena vyethi vyabhicharati niravayatvad dehadivat, is the way that he puts his explanation. That which has the core property or virtue that it cannot be destroyed or brought to a harm is avinashi. That is the first statement that Acharya says. Then he says the term tu, avinashi tu tadvidhi. Right. The term tu in the shloka presents the sat distinctly separate from asat. The tu is used as a conjunction, as and. What Acharya says is here Bhagavan has used the word tu very clearly to separate between this sad and the asad as the concept. Realize or understand this concept. This definition of Brahma, which pervades everything, includes space, similar to how space pervades the pot and other objects. A very important note here. The best way to explain this light or the concept of existence at all times is akasham, is the space, right? And for that we have also said, now is there a space in it? Yes, that is why I'm able to fill water, right? But when I move the bottle, does the space inside this move, or the bottle merely envelops, and wherever it goes, it finds the space and occupies that, or defines the boundary for itself. It is the latter, right? The space doesn't move. It is just the object or the boundaries that define the object keeps moving. So he says it is similar to that, but you need to understand that you should not look at it as space. So what he says is here, even the space is pervaded by this concept. Similar to how space pervades everything, the term Brahman is that which pervades even the space. So that is the extent to which we should expand ourselves and think. The emphasis of Sa Akasham is to prevent one from misunderstanding that Akash is Brahma. The space pervades objects in and out. The concept of Brahma is one who pervades the in and out of the space as well. No, Akash does not change. Similarly, this does not change. Right? So when you put it that way, even when Brahman pervades the Akasha which does not change, there is no concept of change that comes into that Brahman. It does not, what is meant by a change? That it does not increase or decrease. And that is why it is Avyayam. It is not possible to see or conceptualize and has no manifested expressions. This is established in the shloka with the words Vinasham and Avyayam. So Acharya says why Bhagavan has used Avinashi tu tadvidhi yena sarvamidam tadam vinasham avyayasyasya. Why is it that he has to use this? Here he says it is to establish this concept. And because this Brahman is referred to as Sat in its wholesome form, Brahman is ever undecaying, and hence Brahman is called Avyayah. It never traverses or be ruined, as it remains wholesome and is not composed of any parts like those which have a body with limbs like hands, legs, etc. That is the way that Acharya has expressed. So again, when you just read it, it could be, okay, it makes common sense. It is not common sense. It is basically using the best mechanism to indicate a specific value which you otherwise cannot conceptualize in your mind. Once you conceptualize in your mind, you start traversing towards it in the path of realization. Then the truth becomes more clear and it becomes undivided, it becomes wholesome in your experience. When I say wholesome, I'm talking about this entire Jagat. Na api atmiyena atmiya abhavat yatha devadattau dhana धन हान्या व्येथि न तु एवं ब्रह्म वेथि अतः अव्ययस्य अस्य ब्राह्मणो विनाशं न कश्चित् कर्तुम् अर्हति न कश्चित् आत्मानं विनाशयितुं शक्नोति ईश्वरः अपि आत्मा हि ब्रह्म स्वात्मनि च क्रिया विरोधात्. Right here again, this is a very beautiful, again, you can say logical analysis, philosophical or scientific approach to it. And because Brahman, there is nothing that belongs to Brahman, right? He gives the example like Devadatt has wealth and the wealth was lost. This kind of change or a loss is not applicable to Brahman, as Brahman has nothing that belongs to it. Moreover, this concept, which is changeless, Brahman, cannot be destroyed by anyone, including the Ishvara. Right? So, be it, Lord Vishnu or Shiva or what do you say, Brahman, there is no concept of the Trinity that comes into the concept because it is even beyond that Trinity. The soul is Brahman, and to destroy is an action. Okay, that is the beautiful logic that he puts it. The soul is the subject, right? When I say I, even in English, we say I is the subject, and that which I operates on is the object. An action can only be performed on an object and not the subject. If I perform an action, then there is a vyayam, or there is a change that I can bring to it. When there is no action possible on that, then that, what is a change, is not possible at all, because it would become kriya virodham, as in conflicting with the definition of action. Right? An action requires subject and the object. And when I put that action on the actor, then it becomes self-conflicting, is the way that he puts the logical argument. After that, he introduces the 18th shloka. Kim punaha tad asad yat swatma sattam vyabhicharati iti uchyate. Now, given above, what is the nature of Asat, which lets go of its state, Vyabhicharati, is ruined. Alternatively, whose truth of its state is ruined. Right? So that is the explanation that will come in the shloka number 18, extending it from the current shloka. The 18th shloka goes like this. अंतवंत इमे देहा नित्यस्योक्ता शरीरिणः अनाशिनो प्रमेयस्य तस्माद्युध्यस्व भारत. So, antavant ime deha. Antavantah, subject to perishing. Subject to that which get destroyed. What? Ime, all these. Deha, the bodies. Basically, it means stula sukshma karana sharir. So anything that has a body that has been objectified is subject to antam, is subject to an end. Nityasya uktaha. It is said that this kind of perishing happens at all times. Nityasya. Sharirinah, one who has taken the sharir. Okay, so when you get that body, every day you experience this cycle, and it is told so. Bhagavan doesn't say who tells it so, right? We give the references to the Vedas, right? Or there could be other texts also, but everywhere it is said the same thing. And it is a personal experience as well. So we don't have to really go into an argument on this. Anashinaha aprameyasya. But aprameyasya, that which is not perceivable. Here we are coming back to Atma. Anashinaha, that which cannot be destroyed. Right? That which cannot be objectified by using means of knowledge, which is I, the subject. Right? You think of it. Can you, or do you know you exist? The answer is yes. How do you know you exist? Oh, because I have a hand and a leg I chop off your hand and a leg. Do you exist? Yes, I exist. I'm still existing. You take off every limb of mine, I still exist. When I don't exist, this body has lost something that is associated to be called Naresh. It is nothing but a piece of material or pieces of various 5 elements, right? Something put together and which will get destroyed on its own. Nothing needs to be done. But till that time, I exist. When I exist, I don't need any proof to say I exist. I can just lie down and someone who is passing by may think that you don't exist. Even then, you know I exist. You may be in deep coma and yet you know I exist. Right? This I existing at all times must be realized. That which is existing in is antavantaha, is always subject to an end. Tasmad yudhyasva bharata. Therefore, get up and fight the war, hey Arjuna. So this is the very beautiful shloka, where again, Bhagavan, he started the Upadesh and he went directly into Atma Gyan because through the removal of the ignorance, his shokam and moham can be addressed. There is nothing else that can address. It is the Atma Gyan, realizing that this is what I am and this is what I need to do, is the only means for one to get out of the samsara bandham. And here, Bhagavan, after having explained it, he is coming back to the topic of get up and fight. And you will see this Bhagavan repeating for some time. But once he gets into the Jnana Yoga, which starts in chapter 13, in the 3 divisions that we do, Shadgatrayam is the word that we use, you will see that Bhagavan will never say get up and fight. After completing his Upadesh, he will say, now that you have learned all that you need to know, do what you think is the right. Right? That is the way he will conclude it. And then Arjuna will say, no, I will continue. I will listen to you and we will fight the war. And he gets up to fight the war. So your instruction can be given to those who are not knowledgeable. But once they become knowledgeable, instructions become immaterial. It doesn't have a need at all. But coming back here, there are 2 kinds of aspects that we will be seeing. Let us get into this analysis in our next class. But we did speak about it, called as Kutastha Nityam and Pravaga Nityam. We will speak about those kind of concepts and try to understand what is Nityaha, and the term eternal is so deep, we will try to understand it as much as we can. With this, we will conclude our class today and move into our Q&A. Namaskar ji. We will start with Prabhakar.
Namaskar, Guruji. No questions, very deep insights. Just to continue to ponder.
Absolutely. And it will become lighter as we go. Okay, so even in the subsequent shlokas, it will become a little more lighter. But in the first few ones, he has directly jumped into the concept which people study, after all those Tattva Bodha, etc., and it will be towards the end that we get into the Atma Gyan. Right? The Upanishad is towards the end. But here, Bhagavan directly jumps in, so it will be a nice way. And you will realize the beauty of Bhagavan's expression as we proceed later towards the Jnana Yoga.
Super.
So, yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Awesome. Well, then I'll take a leave today and we will connect again during our next week. Harihi Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat.